video, I'm going to show you how I apply marzipan or fondant to my Christmas cake. And if you follow this method, you'll have a lovely smooth finish without any tears, without any folds, without any creases and without any cracks. The important thing is to make sure you've secured it around the top before you start working down the sides. Let me show. First thing I'm going to do is remove the baking papers. They've been keeping all the moisture in. I don't bother feeding my cake. It doesn't need it because it's baked so low and slow. But what I haven't got is a dead flat top. So I'm just going to slice this as though it was a loaf of bread. I'm just going to take that uneven top off. And then I'm going to stand this actually at the bottom of the cake board. That becomes the bottom of the cake. There'll be nice little tasters for afterwards. And then here's my cake board. And so the bottom now becomes the top because that's lovely and flat and straight and even. There we go. Again, I'm going to get the spirit level to this. And actually that's not level. I need to take a bit more off there. I'll just turn it on its side again. And I can see actually it needs a bit more taking off there. That's better. Bubbles right in the middle now. Right, so I can start to think about marzipan. Here's my thick plastic. I wash this and keep it. It's really thick. I think originally it was used to wrap some curtains that came from the dry cleaners or something. And I wrap it around a rolling pin so it doesn't get any creases in it. And I'm going to roll this marzipan in between this plastic because you see, if you roll it out on a work surface, you're going to need icing sugar to stop it sticking. And when you use icing sugar, that dries out your marzipan and your fondant. Whereas if you roll it out between plastic, you're not doing anything to dry it up. So I'm just going to roughly make it into a round shape, and then it needs to be soft so that you can roll it. And then I'll start rolling it between these two sheets of plastic. I've got 500 grams here for this cake that's 8 inches. So let's go. And the beauty of rolling between plastic like this, apart from it not sticking of course, is you can just keep twisting it around. You know, you're not peeling it off the worktop. And if you roll from the middle outwards, then you'll get a circle, a bit like rolling pastry. If you roll from the middle to the edge, then you'll maintain a circle. And we want this, I like it super thin. I don't like thick fondant and I don't like thick marzipan. So I'm going to roll it really thinly. Now if you think to yourself, I actually don't know whether that's big enough to cover this cake here, all you need to do is get a piece of string and put that piece of string over the top and down the sides, and then take your piece of string and lay it onto your piece of rolled out marzipan, and you'll see whether it's going to be big enough. And this isn't big enough, can you see? I'll be short at the sides, so it needs to be even bigger. Got here a couple of tablespoons of vodka, and I'm just going to paint these over the top of the cake. And this will do two things. It will act as a sort of glue, and it'll give the cake a little bit of a feed. But it also, if there was any bacteria you thought it might get going between the marzipan and the cake, this will kill it. So I've got that brushed on, and now I can peel off a sheet of this plastic. And I use the same plastic for fondant as well, do exactly the same. And then I'll lay that over the top. And the beauty of it is, you can keep trying it. So if I want it over that side a little bit, I can do that. and then I can start to just mould it around the top, and then I'm going to carefully just peel off that plastic and let the marzipan fall away like that. Let me see. And because I've not used any icing sugar, this is not going to crack or split. It's still very moist. But I'm just going to start at the top, just securing the top, because if it's going to split anywhere, it'll be from the weight there at the top. So I'm just sticking that to the top so that if anything starts to pull, it'll not crack at the top. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of icing sugar on the worktop there. And these are my cake smoothers. Now if I put cake smoothers straight onto the cake, because the marzipan is still very moist and supple, they would just drag it off the cake. So I'm going to start with my hands and just use the heel of my hand to ease out these sort of ruffles in the marzipan. And it doesn't matter too much if you make a few creases in this, because it's all going to be covered up, but it's better if you don't. So take your time, it's not a problem. Take as much time as you like and just gently ease that marzipan. If you've ever done any dressmaking, it's a bit like easing in a sleeve into the top of a dress. And then you just use the heel of your hand to just secure it in the bottom like that, can you see? And then I can turn it round and keep going. Like that. Don't forget, even if you get a few creases, if you get a few tears, it's still going to taste exactly the same. And the important thing is, you've done it. You've made it. You've not bought it. You've made it. This is my final little frill. Just ease it, easing it in. Smoothing out any creases. There we are. That's good. And then I like to use, as I do with pastry and everything, I like to use a pizza cutter to just whip round and square off that bottom. It doesn't drag, you can just get a really clean cut. And then I'm going to use the cake smoothers. There we are. And then I'll dip these in the icing sugar. And just rub at this cake, making sure I get rid of any air bubbles. If I had got any creases, I would smooth out any creases. But you won't get creases. You're not going to get creases. You're going to do it absolutely perfectly. There's absolutely no rush, because your marzipan's not going to dry out because you haven't used any icing sugar. And then this needs to stand. You can put it in a tin, but I tend to leave mine out just for a day or two, just for this marzipan to dry out, because it's obviously is made from almonds, which are oily, and especially with the very yellow marzipan, you don't want any of that yellow colour leaking through into your icing. So you leave it to dry out completely. So what we've got now is a lovely finish, first layer to the finished Christmas cake. There we go.